Welcome to Soulfire Wisdom with Kate Olson. As an evolving spirit and change adventure navigator, it is Kate's mission to empower and guide you on your path and inspire your truest passions. She will encourage you to share your gifts, speak your truth, and ignite your inner wisdom and purpose. She hopes to do so with a little humor and grace and her own soulfire passion. Kate talks with amazing guests who have embraced the pursuit and are fanning the flames of their own passion, purpose, and soulfire wisdom. Now here's your host, Kate.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Soulfire Wisdom and Tips, Tricks, and Triumphs Tuesday. So I had two things that brought up the same topic this week. And that was, I caught myself thinking about the worst time in my life. And, like really feeling some of those feelings that I felt then. And that's been quite a long time ago, actually. It's been, let me see, more than 15 years. And then a client actually said to me, she said, I keep having these horrible thoughts and I just can't get them out of my head. And so I thought, this is what I need to talk about this week for a few minutes is one of the greatest powers that we have is our ability to choose one thought over another. And we definitely and totally do have that power. We are not stuck with a thought that we have to keep thinking. And so being aware of what you're thinking and how it's making you feel is the first step. And then just plain deciding that you're going to stop focusing on that thought and you're going to think something else. And an example of this is I had a client actually when I was very first doing life coaching. And he said to me one day, he said, every morning I lay in bed and I think about all the regrets that I've had from my whole life. I think about every bad thing that ever happened. And sometimes I feel so bad that I can't even get out of bed. And so I said, well, what if you stopped doing that? And he looked at me like, I was totally crazy. How could I possibly stop doing that? And so we talked about it for a little while and we decided that instead of thinking about all those regrets from his whole life, that he would think about all of the good things that he was going to do that day and the things that he was thankful for in his life right now. And he tried that. And not amazingly, it did work because we absolutely do have the power to choose what we are going to think about and focus on. And so it does happen to all of us. I don't know why those negative thoughts from 15 years ago popped into my mind, but I am glad that, that I decided that I wasn't going to keep focusing on them and decided that I didn't want to feel bad. So that's something I wanted to talk about for today. And now I want to get to the really great show that we have planned with our guest, Krista Herring. Krista is an independent singer-songwriter. She's a California native who now lives in Oregon. And she's an intuitive and soulful songwriter. She believes deeply in the power of music to transform and heal. and her songs are soulful and set to the beat of an acoustic guitar and delivered with her very beautiful and captivating voice. So they're compassionate and heartfelt and therefore transformative. She has a new album coming out in May, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So I'm really happy to introduce her now. Hi, Krista. How
Hi,
are you?
Kate. Good. Thanks for having me.
So you're so lucky to be visiting in Bend now.
Yes, I'm in Bend for a few days. I used to live here for a few years and just back visiting and enjoying the sunshine, which we...
So it is sunny there now.
Yes. We don't get quite enough of that in Portland, so...
Yeah. We're actually having a windstorm here where I am. The skies are still blue, but the wind's blowing, so there's a lot of clouds in the sky. So to start out with, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what led you to your current path?
Oh, that's a big wide question.
Start anywhere you want.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, I've always been, I would say, a seeker of, the deepest truths on a soul, heart level. And I have always been a fan of music. And, before I started writing songs at a very young age as a little girl. But before that, I wrote poetry. And, so finally at 16, when I picked up the acoustic guitar, it was just the most natural thing to immediately start writing songs. And they proved to be, it proved to be such a transformative process for me that I would need throughout my life, which has had, like many people, many challenges. And yeah, it's been such a gift, really, to be able to channel those experiences through the art and find healing and be able to give honor to those experiences and thus be able to release them, right? Just as an energetic release and move through. So they've been very healing for me to write. I've been doing it for a long time now. I won't say how long, but long enough.
So, what motivates you to create? Do you have, something that helps you be more creative?
Well, gosh, the muse moves through me when it moves through me. So actually, I would say what tends to motivate me the most, and maybe many songwriters would say this, I don't know, is strong emotions or experiences, right? Something that I feel, something that I need to process, something... the process of writing for me is almost, well, it is one of like channeling. I've come to really understand that. Songs come through me. So sometimes I just have to pick up the guitar. And I could go months, unlike a lot of musicians, I can go months and not pick up the guitar. If it's not, I don't like, shame myself for that or say, oh, I should do this or I should do that. I don't live my life that way with anything. It's like there's a time and a place for everything. And I just try to intuitively listen to what's needed. And especially as an indie artist, there's a time and a place for everything. Sometimes it's creative time. Sometimes you're birthing songs. Sometimes you're in the studio being creative in another way. Sometimes you have to do the marketing, stuff like that.
Not your favorite part, huh?
Clearly.
Do you have a certain process when you are channeling the creativity, or is it just comes to you and that's it?
Well, I would say that each song sort of is pretty individual. And like I said, it tends to come through me. So, you know, sometimes words come through first. And maybe I don't have the chance to have my guitar, but words are coming through me, you know, and then maybe nowadays we use technology, right? So we're on my phone, like I'll type something out or whatever. Or maybe it's just that I pick up my guitar in a meditation and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to be present with the guitar, and then something pours through. Just the words, oftentimes that's the process. Words and music come through together. There's not really an intention most of the time for me. It's just something that comes through. You know, I'm not like a songwriter, like Nashville style songwriter, where we say, okay, we're gonna go sit down and have a co-write. What do we want to write about today? Like I don't do that. So, and I applaud people who do, because I think that's awesome. That's amazing. You know, there are so many different kinds of songwriters and artists, and everyone has their place, and it's so beautiful. And I just do the thing that I do.
All right. So, what is it like being an independent artist in these crazy times that we've been having?
Well, they're interesting times on a lot of levels. They're interesting times. They were interesting before COVID, let's say. You know, it's already been a very transformative 5 to 10 years in the industry, so that it's unlike anything we've seen. And it just in that sense alone, we as musicians in general and the music industry, you know, we've been trying to figure out, well, how do we make money now? Because people don't, well, CDs are pretty much defunct. I still have a few fans that are like, are you gonna have CDs? You know, I guess people make records sometimes now, but you know, for me, most of the time it's like, well, and people aren't buying music either. Like, you know, used to be then, oh, people were buying on iTunes, but now most people stream music. I stream music. I use Spotify, you know, so people use Spotify and Pandora, and that's great too, because there's a way in which that can sort of level the playing field. If you do well, if you have some good songs that people relate to, it's possible that they can, through the algorithms, if people like them and they play them and you start to get traction, the way Spotify works is it will push it to other people. It'll be like, oh, we think you might like this because, you know, other people who like this, you know. And so that could be helpful. But at the same time, it's very expensive to make albums, far more expensive than a lot of people understand, even when you're doing it indie and cheap, you know, as cheap as you can. So it is, you know, kind of a challenge, and you know, when you're trying to figure out like, oh, how do you recoup these costs? But again, those of us who have to do it, meaning like, right, this is the fire of my soul. This is my soul fire. And speaking of which, that's how you and I connected.
Well, go ahead.
Oh, excuse me. I was going to say, I just wanted to say that's how you and I connected, because I can't remember how you found me, but I thought, oh, that's so funny, because that's my YouTube account name, Soulfire333.
I think that's how we connected. I think you sent me a message and told me that. So you must have seen the
I have no idea
the name of it. And then, you know, you had a link to your music, so I went and listened. So
yeah.
So can you imagine this past year without the changes in technology that happened over the past 5 to 10 years?
Well, you know, there are really great things about that technology.
Yeah.
You know, including, you know, those of us, like now I use my phone when I write songs, right? So not only can I write on there, but I'll use my voice recorder, and I will, as I'm writing, you know, record these things. And so, which is great because maybe you put it down and you leave, and then you might be like, wait, how did that go again? You know, but then I have it. So, so that's great. I mean, we have the ability now to connect on the internet, right? People do live streams over COVID. That hasn't been something that I've done.
They've even had, they're not the same, but they've even had, you know, like concerts.
Right.
On live streaming. So.
Yeah, and that one's been a little hard for me. I just haven't felt called to do it. I'll record videos, I'll write new songs and post them up maybe, but most of this last year was really involved in birthing this album. So especially in the studio the last maybe 6 or 7 months. And so that's been where my focus has been, and it takes a lot, you know. It's a big project on a lot of levels, funding and the studio work and the artwork and all the other stuff. And it's such a great joy. I'm so blessed that I've had that to be able to focus on and create during these times when it's so easy for us to get caught up in the polarity, right? One way or the other. And so I think that is one of the most beautiful gifts that we have, just like you were talking about earlier, the opportunity to change your thoughts, right? So the choice to focus on creation of what it is you want to see is exactly what it is. That's how I live my life. I try to live my life. And that's what I think is the antidote to the challenges that society is having today. And so for me to be able to focus there instead of going down a million rabbit holes and say, okay, you know what? I don't know how this plays out. I don't know how this plays out. Everything's conflicting. But I'm just going to focus on what I want to create and what I want to see, who I want to be. How can I affect the people around me? And literally, what kind of energy even am I putting into my songs and into my music? And, you know, because I believe, everything is energy, and there's an energetic signature. And the intentions and the energy that I carry when I'm in the recording studio comes through. So I literally, it's kind of a joke. I always have my crystals with me. I like to be barefoot in crystals when I'm recording, but I also say a little prayer beforehand, you know, that the right medicine comes through me, the right energetic medicine comes through, and it reaches the people that it needs to reach to create that healing. Yeah.
I do think that's where every individual person has to start to make things better as a whole. So,
yes.
So you mentioned the changes in the industry and how that makes it harder. So what is the best way that people can support indie artists? Because I know everybody wants them to still be around.
Right. Yes. There are a few ways. The best thing to do is, well, if you can support them by buying their music, awesome. Some people have Patreons. I don't. If you can support them in their fundraising to be able to make that music, awesome. Listening, clearly, if you love them, even if you did buy their music, listening on, if you listen on Spotify or Pandora or any of those are great ways to help, get that music out there. It's just an interesting time we live in. We're dealing with computers and algorithms that are deciding, really weird little things like, oh, okay, it's associating you with other artists that people like to listen to, or if someone forwards your song, it might decide they don't like you, or it's a lot of weird shit.
Or if some supposed influencer says you're good, then or not, which is
But sharing the music is huge. If you can do that, listen. But if you make playlists, add it to your playlist. You can share it. You can share it on your social media. Let people know. Just it's all energy and attention, right? It's equal to love. It's like, okay, that energy multiplies, and you share it. It gives people an opportunity to find it. Even if Facebook algorithms sort of suppress you sometimes,
Well,
it does do that.
We won't even start talking about that.
No, we don't need to go there.
So you mentioned a little bit earlier about how technology has changed. How has that impacted your creativity?
Well, as I mentioned, it has been really useful in the writing of songs, in documenting the songs, in being able to remember them even if you're not practicing them all the time. I think access to so much more music, it's so easily, gives us so much more influence, right? Kind of that, we're all our own thing, but we're influenced by all these people that do their own thing. So so I think that's what's really cool. So that it has allowed indie artists to make a bigger impact. There are a lot of indie artists.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know how some of them are surviving during this time when I know a lot of them relied upon.
As you know, I have this big group of creative people that I know, and there's a lot of musicians and artists in that group, and a lot of them are doing the same thing that you've been doing. They're using the time to be creative and planning what they're going to come out with when it's possible.
Right.
So a lot of people like you have albums coming out or singles or their latest project.
Yes.
So do you do live performances as well as your albums? And
many years. I have for many years. I haven't done anything clearly in the last year.
Most okay.
Yeah, exactly. We'll let it clear up.
Yeah, there's a few that have that I've seen that they've done a few little things here and there, but for the most part, it's been virtual.
Yes, it has been nice. It has been a blessing, though, to be able to put that energy, the performer energy, focus it into the creation of the new album, because those are two different personalities, really. The artist.
Which part do you like best?
Oh, well, being oddly, I would say that I'm an introverted extrovert, but I'm really kind of more of an introvert nowadays. So I actually have enjoyed in some ways, the lockdown, or the ability to redirect my energy inward, and then direct it into the creation of the music. So it takes a lot out of me to perform. Mm-hmm. So while I do love to perform, I have sort of a set of circumstances that works for me and doesn't work for me. I'm not really wanting to go play at the local bar or play to people who aren't listening. I want to create music that can touch people in their quiet moments, that can help shift energy that, that they love. but I just know that I don't want to do certain kind of gigs anymore. And it's because it takes a lot out of me.
I totally understand. I'm definitely more the creative process person than the performer in what I do. And a lot of artists are like that.
Mm-hmm.
I had someone on my show actually say, I have a confession to make. I'm actually an introvert, although most people don't know that. So
that's true. It's the same for me. I'm really good at hiding that.
mm-hmm.
I like people, but
well, what an introvert actually is, doesn't mean you don't like people or you want to be alone. It means that you need that alone time to recharge. And you might be really outgoing when you're with people, but you need that recharging time.
Yeah.
So
it's a lot of energy to move. And what I will say is, I think it would be difficult. Probably normally people don't do both at the same time. Like if you're in the studio, I think you sort of need to focus on being in the studio. And if you're performing, you're performing. And that's possible because being in the studio, if I go into the studio, even for a few hours of the day, it is exhausting. I'm probably going to be exhausted the next day. It's a big energetic movement. And you'd just be surprised, you know, you're moving a lot of energy and that's exhausting. And then I've now learned to be okay with resting and listening to the body. I used to push myself back when I used to perform out a lot, all the time and be on the road. And yeah, my body didn't like that. I'll say that.
So you recently released a couple of singles. Do you want to tell us about those and what they are?
Sure, yes. I've been releasing a song a month for a few months. So I just released a song called The Truth, which is a really sweet love song. This whole album is born of an experience of a very transformative relationship in my life. And there's a lot to that, but it's a journey in and of itself. And then I have another new song being released April 6th called Tidal Wave, which I'm really excited about. And that'll be the last single, and then I'll release the full album on May 4th.
Okay, and so what's the album?
The name of it is called Like Water.
Oh, okay.
And the whole thing has a lot of, you've probably seen a lot of watery themes. Yeah, there's a lot of water imagery in it.
And this is all a process of that relationship that you mentioned?
Yes.
No, I mean, that is what our creativity comes from, is our life experiences. So
yes, and I have Saturn in the 7th house, so I learn through relationships. So yeah, and so often I do write songs that are not about relationships, but I do write a lot of songs that are about relationships, you know, because or maybe on some way they are about relating all around. They are what they are, they come through, right? But yeah, that's just the thing that I do. And that's how I learn my lessons. And
yes, well, you know, as you said, ripples move outward. And as you go through the processes of healing yourself, that is how you produce those things that, you know, others find transformative and healing in their own way.
Right. And I would say, yeah, even my willingness to go through those experiences, to feel them and process them, you know, even the writing of the songs themselves, right, creates healing.
Right.
So even if they don't get out to, you know, billions of people or whatever.
So, you know, what kind of music did you hear when you were growing up? And did you come from, you know, a musical family? Were your parents musical?
Well, that's kind of a funny question. We don't really know where my talent came from.
Okay.
My mom played the flute.
Oh, okay.
So I played the classical flute for 5 years, actually. I was really good at it, and then I stopped. And so that I could play guitar, and then there were a couple of things that I used to do. I used to perform. I was a classical ballerina for 8 years. So there are things that I quit in order to move into the music in a way that I could like support the songwriting. And but nobody sings in my family. My daughter sings. She sings with me often. You'll hear her in the backgrounds of my album. She's incredible. But nobody before me that I know of has been musical. But what I will say is my mom loves music. So that influence is there. And so what I grew up on were things like, you know, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, James Taylor, like Joni Mitchell, Carly Simon, Carol King, you know, all that great stuff, right? Because that's what my mom listened to. So I had all those classic rock influences. But then I was also a kid of the 90s. So then I had that sort of 90s singer-songwriter and alternative kind of influence. And I would say a lot of people compare my music to maybe some of that Lilith Fair type, you know, music. That singer, when we still had a lot of the female singer-songwriters with the guitar and writing the songs and
Yep.
And in fact, when I started writing songs and playing guitar, I was probably, you know, really into Jewel at the time, right? Back in the day. And she was just starting to hit. So now I'm dating myself. But so she was probably like my first. That was probably, you know, some of my first influence, just that really soulful poetry, processing of this stuff.
It's amazed me how long some of that music has stayed around and influenced people. That's just kind of an amazing thing.
Yes, I know.
So, what do you like best about being a singer song? Well, actually, we already talked about this one. So so I'm not going to ask that.
Next.
Were you inspired by any specific current or past artists? Not what you listen to necessarily, but who inspired you to become?
You know, I love so much music. I'm laughing because I was just thinking, oh, who inspired me to start picking up the guitar and being like a little hippie singer-songwriter? Well, here's a little secret. It was when I watched Forrest Gump, and Jenny was just up there playing her guitar and singing "Blowing in the Wind." And so guess what? That's like the first song that I learned.
Really?
On the guitar. Because that's what I identified with at the time. I just wanted to be that little hippie singer-songwriter girl and go traveling, and I did. So that's sort of a non-musical sort of thing that influenced me, which is sort of funny. But as far as musical influences, they're just so wide. They're just so vast, you know. Gosh, it's hard to even name. I mean, Ray LaMontagne became like a really big influence for me. Some of my favorites now, they're indie artists like Gregory Alan Isakov. Let's see, people who you would know, like Brandy Carlisle. There are just so many. I don't even know. And, you know, sometimes people listen to my music and they think it sounds sort of, I call it Americana, but some people, you know, sometimes it sounds like it has a country influence, which is really funny. But I did live in Nashville and Austin, so there is that. But I'm also really like a West Coast girl.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I noticed that little bit of country that was in it, but it's not. I'm not a big fan of country myself, but there's not enough of that, and there's a difference to me between the new style country and the old style where it's kind of, I don't know, twangy. But there's not enough of that country to, you know, I thought I can hear that country part, but I still like it. So.
Right. I totally understand what you're saying, because I've also been raised the same way, or sort of like the idea of country being about very specific topics like trucks and dogs. And I mean, it's relatable for, you know, a lot of people, or maybe it's easy, or maybe it's, but there's also a side of country that's really just about great songwriting, or, you know.
There is, and I know that, but
yeah,
it's a holdover from my childhood growing up.
I'm right there with you. Yeah,
my stepdad played guitar, and he loved country, Hank Williams, all of that, and used to jam with some musicians that he knew, and he knew that I did not like country. And it was his life goal to convince me that I did. So, and it was my, you know, obstinate goal to keep reminding him that I didn't.
Well, nowadays we have this term called Americana that's just this like umbrella under which I've always identified as folk. But under Americana, there's folk and there's country and like sort of everything in between, right? Because like
there's a lot of artists that have that, you know,
and
a bit of that style, like Sheryl Crow and
yes. Yeah, and I think if you sort of looked back even into some of those 90s artists that were like influencers for me, you might see some of that as well. Like, oh, okay, like nowadays we might even call that country. And and this in this day and age, the way that country is now, it's sort of, well, we just say it's like 90s pop, really, you know?
Yeah, so, definitely there is a difference.
So maybe that's why I sound more country now.
No, I heard just a little bit of it. So I can see where that Austin and Nashville influence came from.
Yeah, I don't sing with that accent, you know, the whole like, because I'm not a Southern girl, although sometimes I randomly sound like I'm talking with a Southern accent. But I think if you're country, you have to say your R's like that when you say.
Yeah, it's really hard if you didn't.
That's great. You know, like good music is good music. I think that's what it comes down to for me. It's the soul of it. Like there is country now. I never thought that I would be like, I love this. I love these artists. They sound country, but not country in the way that I understood country before. And maybe they have these, you know, they carry these accents and whatever. But there's a lot of great music. And, you know, one of my favorite current artists trying to break out right now is Stephanie Lamring. And she is incredible. And the stuff that she has to say, you know, I would say as far as topics go, is so almost anti-country, because it's really calling out major institutions. And we won't even really go there, but it's incredible. You know, it's really, good music is like, do you have something to say?
Yes, and that has changed too. Like when my stepdad and I would have our discussions, I would tell him that I didn't like country music because it was sad and sorry. and you know, the music now isn't like that. So
right. Yeah, there was like outlaw country, different. I think they used to have more to say too now that than you know, certain things today. There are plenty of surface dwelling artists all across the board, you know.
Yeah.
I like Americana. I like that. I like the umbrella term, you know, just more of, it means a lot of things, but yeah.
So I have a question now that's it probably seems off topic, but I've been asking all my guests for a while. So I'll ask you, what has surprised you most about life so far?
What has surprised me about life? I mean, I don't know that I had expectations coming into life. So
Everybody seems to have a few.
I don't remember back that far. Okay, but here's what I will say. What has surprised me, I suppose, is the older I get, the more I feel like, oh, the more in touch with myself I feel. That makes sense. But also almost the younger I feel, the more like, oh, this is the prime of my life. We were always kind of taught, especially as musicians, let's say in the industry, oh, like once you get, you gotta make it happen early. Once you get to 27, it's over. That was like the old like pop idea, you know, like then you gotta quit. And I used to do that to myself. I used to feel, and I know a lot of musicians do, you know, like, oh, okay, well, I got to do it. It's so hard. It really is hard. It's a difficult path, I will say, for a lot of us. So we do it because we have to do it, not because I say to someone, if you don't have to do this in your soul, don't do it. Because it's really hard. It's really challenging. You can sacrifice everything for it. So I spent, you know, a lot of time saying, oh, okay, well, when I get to this age, I'm going to quit. And then I'd get there and be like, oh, I'll just give it a few more years. When I get to this age, when I get to this age. And so I actually went through, you know, some dark nights of the soul in my life. Sometimes where I really had to kind of let go of this, well, that's not happening. Or like the death of the dream. And I have a song about that that's out there on the internet's, you know, Spotify and all, called Blackest Blue. And that song is about the death of the dream and about the love of somebody like pulling me through that space. So what I would say surprises me the most is that when I finally let go, that's when things started to come more easily. And when I really finally thought it was done and it was over, or felt like, well, you know, that's it. And when I let go of the need for it to look a certain way or the need to succeed, how about that? Then I could finally be exactly who I am. There's nothing else to lose. I'm going to finally make the music that I love, the music that I want to make. And that's what this new album is about. I co-produced it. It's for all the albums, EPs, singles that I have out there over the years since 2008-9. This is the first one that I really feel like, almost like this is the first real album that I'm making. This is the first album I'm making for me, not like some producer, you know, saying, I'm going to do it this way, you know, or like, okay, well, you know, because you can kind of tell if you go back over some of those past albums or EPs, you might be like, oh, that's really different than this stuff. Like, but now what we're making now and what's been coming out past few months and what's coming out in May, this is the stuff I'm most excited about. And so it doesn't really matter. Like, I know a lot of people are responding really well, actually better than ever, than anything that I've released, but also it doesn't really matter because this is my heart and soul being put into it. So while it is very vulnerable in a way, as long as you're who you are and you created what you love, if people don't like it, that's fine, but you did what you wanted. But if you like compromised yourself, which I did many, many times over the years because it's challenging, being a woman, especially in this industry, I'll say. When you compromise yourself and then it doesn't really go as well as you want, and you didn't really love the music as much, or you wished you'd had done this or that different, or you're like, okay, well, I'll trust you because you know what you're doing. You know the formula to success. And I think that what it comes down to is, well, there isn't one, but maybe if there really is one, that it's about being who you are.
Exactly. What you said is more profound than you know. So awesome.
This is the journey, right? No matter what it is you do, no matter how we're showing up, like, be who you are.
So we're getting close to the end of the time. If there's one thought that you could leave the listeners with, what would that be?
Be kind to yourself. Love yourself. Be gentle. We're all going through very transformational times. Some of us have been going through it for years and maybe are breaking through, and maybe now we're doing well because we've been going through it. Know that you're not alone. Don't beat yourself up. Take care of yourself. Yeah.
Good advice. So when does that next album come out?
It will come out on May 6th. No, May 4th. I'm confusing the dates. The next single comes out April 6th. The full album will come out May 4th. Okay, and it will be on all major platforms.
Okay. And if people want to find it or want to, listen to your music or get in touch, how can they do that?
Yeah, they can go to my website. That's really easy, KristaHerring.com, or they can, nowadays, all you have to do is search my name in whatever major platform that you use, Spotify or Pandora or whatever it is. Yeah. And I'm also on Bandcamp. That's a great way to support artists. Once a month, they do a revenue share wave. So then all the money, the artists are getting all the money. So as opposed to getting a quarter of a cent, if that, from every play on Spotify, just know, you can support artists. So all of my current discography is on Bandcamp as well, and that would be KristaHerring.bandcamp.com.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being here today and talking with us. And I can't wait to hear the new music that you're coming out with, especially since I now know, that's your heart and soul. So
yes, yeah, I can't wait for it to come out either. It's like birthing a baby.
Definitely.
Get it out.
So I want to thank the listeners for being here today. I have a quote for you to carry with you through your week, and that is, music, once admitted to the soul, becomes a sort of spirit and never dies. And I believe that's really true. So it was said by Edward Bulwer Lytton, and I have no idea who he is, but I like what he said. So we have another great show planned for next week. My guest will be Dr. Yvonne Kay. And Dr. Yvonne has been in the human services industry for 65 years. And she specializes in counseling people with bereavement and addiction issues. But she's lived her life based on her connection to spirituality and laughter. So we're actually going to talk about that next week. And she's an incredibly interesting lady. She's 86, and I can't wait for you to meet her. So tune in next week, Tuesday, 3 p.m. And thank you again, Krista.
Thank you, Kate. Thanks for having me.
And I'm just going to say bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Soul Fire Wisdom with Kate Olson. We hope you enjoyed the show. If we made you laugh, brightened your day, or sparked a new thought, we have succeeded in our mission. Join us next time when we'll share more secrets and truths and all the magic of transformation that is the journey to Soul Fire Wisdom. Always remember, be fierce in the pursuit of what sets your soul on fire.